The massive halls of Nexus Prime had never seen such a gathering. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy filled the enormous chamber, their voices mixing into a low rumble of concern and complaint. The air itself seemed thick with tension as delegates from hundreds of different worlds took their seats. At the center of it all sat the Galactic Council, 12 of the most powerful species in known space. Their faces showed the same expression, worry mixed with determination. Today they would finally deal with the human problem. Ambassador Kepler of the hegemony stood first. His tall, blue-scaled form commanded attention as he walked to the speaking platform. The hegemony controlled more than 1,000 star systems and had the largest military fleet in the galaxy. When Kepler spoke, others listened. Fellow beings of the galaxy, his voice boomed through the chamber, we are here because of a growing threat to our peaceful civilization. For 300 years we have watched the humans spread across space like a disease. They take worlds without asking. They build colonies where they should not be. They ignore our laws and customs. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Many species had similar complaints about humanity. The humans seemed to appear everywhere, always asking questions, always pushing boundaries, always wanting more. Look at their behavior, Kepler continued, bringing up a holographic display. In just 3 centuries, they have claimed 17 star systems. They refuse to follow proper colonization procedures. Their ships appear in places they should not be. Their traders ask too many questions about our military capabilities and strategic resources. The hologram showed human expansion across their small corner of space. Red dots marked human colonies, growing steadily outward from their homeworld of Earth. To many in the chamber, it looked like an infection spreading. But what concerns us most, Kepler said, his voice dropping lower, is their nature. Humans are violent, unpredictable creatures. They fight wars among themselves even now. They destroy their own environment. They cannot be trusted to behave properly in civilized space. More agreement from the crowd. Everyone knew about human wars. Their history was full of violence and destruction. Even their entertainment seemed to focus on conflict and fighting. What kind of species enjoyed watching fictional wars? Near the back of the chamber, Admiral Sarah Chen sat quietly in the human delegation section. She was a small woman, especially compared to the towering forms of other species around her. Her dark hair was pulled back simply, and she wore a plain blue uniform without decorations. She looked almost boring next to the elaborate costumes and natural majesty of other delegates. The evidence is clear, Kepler continued. Humans are a young, dangerous species that needs guidance. They must be contained before they cause real damage to galactic peace. One by one, other representatives stood to voice their concerns. The crystalline Vorthak complained about human mining operations that seemed too efficient. The gas-dwelling Nebulans worried about human atmospheric processors that worked too well. The ancient preservers spoke of human archaeological expeditions that asked uncomfortable questions about old ruins. Each complaint painted the same picture: humans who did not know their place, who pushed too hard, who wanted to know too much. They were like children playing with tools they did not understand, potentially dangerous to themselves and others. Admiral Chen listened to it all without expression. When called upon to respond to specific accusations, she gave short, polite answers. Yes, human expansion had been rapid. Yes, humans sometimes acted without proper authorization. Yes, they would try to do better in the future. Her responses seemed to frustrate some delegates. They wanted anger, defensiveness, something they could argue against. Instead, they got calm acceptance and promises to improve. It made the humans seem even more alien and unpredictable. The hegemony's military commander, War Marshal Thisakar, presented the most damning evidence. His tactical analysis showed human ship movements that made no strategic sense, human colonies in locations that should be impossible to supply, human trade routes that seemed designed more for military purposes than commerce. Their behavior suggests they are either completely incompetent, Thisakar declared, or they are hiding something from us. Either way, they are dangerous. The debate continued for hours. Species after species stood to voice concerns about human activities in their regions of space. The humans were always polite, always helpful, always asking questions. But there were too many of them, in too many places, doing too many things that did not quite make sense. Finally, Council Prime Zendar called for order. The ancient being's mental voice touched every mind in the chamber, bringing instant silence. As the eldest member of the council, representing a species that had achieved spaceflight when most others were still primitive. Zendar's words carried enormous weight. "The Council has heard all testimony," the mental voice announced. "The evidence shows that humanity, while not actively hostile, represents a destabilizing force in galactic civilization. Their rapid expansion, combined with their violent nature and unpredictable behavior, poses a potential threat to peace." The chamber held its breath. Everyone knew what was coming. Therefore, the Council imposes the following restrictions on human space activities. First, no further territorial expansion beyond their current 17 systems. Second, all human colonies must accept galactic peacekeeping forces to maintain order. Third, humanity is granted observer status only in galactic affairs. No voting rights, no participation in military planning, no access to advanced technologies. The vote was swift and decisive. 437 votes in favor, 3 abstentions, 1 vote against. Only the humans voted against their own restrictions, and even they seemed to accept the outcome with grace. Admiral Chen stood when called upon for humanity's final statement. She looked small and insignificant compared to the massive chamber around her, but her voice carried clearly to every corner. "The Galactic Council's decision is noted and accepted," she said simply. "Humanity will comply with all restrictions placed upon us. We have no desire for conflict with our galactic neighbors." She paused, looking around the chamber with calm brown eyes that seemed to see more than they should. "However, I feel obligated to make one observation. The Council's decision is based on the assumption that humanity poses a threat to galactic peace. We hope this assumption never becomes problematic. We hope it never becomes necessary to demonstrate why this decision is inadvisable." Her words sent a small chill through some delegates, but most dismissed them as empty posturing. What could humanity do? They were outnumbered 1,000,000 to 1. Their technology was primitive compared to galactic standards. Their military was tiny and disorganized. They were in no position to threaten anyone. As the session ended and delegates began filing out, many felt satisfied with the day's work. The human problem had been solved before it could become a real threat. Restrictions were in place. Peacekeeping forces would be deployed, and the galaxy could return to its normal, peaceful state. Admiral Chen gathered her small staff and prepared to leave. As she walked past groups of celebrating delegates, she heard fragments of conversation about how well the situation had been handled, how dangerous it would have been to let the humans continue unchecked, how fortunate it was that action had been taken before things got out of hand. She said nothing, but those who looked closely might have noticed a small, sad smile on her face. It was the expression of someone who knew a secret that others would not understand until it was too late. The galaxy had made its choice. The humans had been contained, controlled, and dismissed as a minor threat that could be easily managed. Peace and order would be maintained. Nobody suspected that the real human civilization was watching from the shadows, taking careful note of which species had voted for restrictions and which had abstained. Nobody realized that Admiral Chen was not humanity's leader, but merely their messenger. The galaxy celebrated its victory over the human threat, not knowing that the real test was yet to come. 2 years had passed since the Galactic Council imposed restrictions on humanity, and the galaxy had largely forgotten about the human problem. The 17 human systems remained quiet and compliant. Their colonies accepted peacekeeping forces without complaint. Their representatives attended council meetings as silent observers, never causing trouble or making demands. Most galactic citizens had moved on to other concerns. The Zephyrian Empire and Silicon Collective were locked in an increasingly bitter trade war. Pirates had become more active in the Outer Rim territories. Several species were dealing with internal political upheavals. The humans seemed like a solved problem, contained and controlled. Lieutenant Commander Vextal of Altarian Intelligence did not share this comfortable view. As a professional intelligence officer, he was trained to notice patterns that others missed. And something about the human data streams bothered him. It started with a simple communication audit of the human systems. Standard procedure required all restricted species to have their transmissions monitored. The humans had agreed to this without argument, providing full access to their communication networks. But when Vexatel analyzed the data, the numbers did not add up. The humans claimed a total population of roughly 50 million people across their 17 systems. Their communication traffic should reflect this number. Instead, Vextal found data streams suggesting a population nearly 10 times larger. There were too many personal messages, too much commercial traffic, too many administrative communications for such a small population. His first thought was human inefficiency. Perhaps they simply communicated more than other species, but deeper analysis revealed something more disturbing. The communication patterns showed coordination across distances that should be impossible with known human technology. Messages were being routed through relay points that did not appear on any galactic charts. Vextal brought his concerns to his superior, intelligence director Cassin. The older Altarian reviewed the data with growing unease. Like all intelligence professionals, he had learned to trust patterns more than explanations. And these patterns suggested that the humans were hiding something significant. Run a deep scan on human energy signatures, Cassin ordered. I want to know exactly what kind of power generation they are using. The results were shocking. Human installations were producing energy levels far beyond what their reported technology should allow. Some of their agricultural colonies were generating more power than major industrial worlds. Their research stations showed energy outputs consistent with massive manufacturing complexes. But the most disturbing discovery came from analyzing human ship movements. The peacekeeping forces stationed in human space dutifully reported all vessel traffic in and out of human systems. According to their logs, human space activity was minimal and declining. But gravitational sensors placed throughout the galaxy told a different story. Ships were moving through space in patterns that suggested a vast, hidden network of human activity. Gravitational signatures appeared in empty regions far from any known human colony. Faster-than-light transit events were detected in systems that should contain nothing but empty space and dead rocks. Vextal spent weeks cross-referencing the data, looking for explanations. Perhaps the sensors were malfunctioning. Perhaps they were detecting natural phenomena. Perhaps other species were operating in those regions without reporting it. The truth was more unsettling than any of those possibilities. Director, Vextal said during his final briefing, I believe the humans have been systematically deceiving us about the scope of their civilization. The evidence suggests they have colonies in hundreds of systems beyond their declared territory. Cassin studied the holographic display showing human activity across known space. Red dots marked confirmed human systems. Yellow dots showed locations of suspicious gravitational events. Blue dots indicated energy signatures consistent with human technology. The yellow and blue dots outnumbered the red ones by more than 50 to 1. Are you telling me, Cassin said slowly, that the humans have been operating a secret empire right under our noses? That is exactly what I am telling you, sir. And based on the energy signatures and ship movements, this secret empire is far larger and more advanced than their public face suggests. The implications were staggering. If the humans had been hiding their true capabilities, then every assumption about their threat level was wrong. If they had colonies throughout previously unexplored space, then their population and resources were vastly greater than anyone suspected. If their technology was more advanced than they claimed, then the restrictions placed on them were meaningless. Cassin ordered an immediate priority investigation. Intelligence assets throughout the galaxy were tasked with confirming human activities in regions where they should not exist. The results that came back over the following weeks painted a picture that terrified the intelligence community. Human settlements were found in systems hundreds of light years beyond their declared territory. These were not primitive colonies struggling to survive in hostile environments. They were thriving communities with advanced infrastructure, sophisticated technology, and industrial capabilities that rivaled the galaxy's major powers. More disturbing still, many of these hidden colonies appeared to be decades or even centuries old. The humans had not just been secretly expanding since the Council restrictions. They had been hiding their true presence in the galaxy since their first contact with galactic civilization. The secret reports made their way up through various intelligence hierarchies, eventually reaching the highest levels of galactic government. Emergency sessions were called in council chambers across known space. Species leaders who had dismissed humanity as a minor annoyance suddenly found themselves facing the possibility that they had been sharing the galaxy with a hidden superpower. The Galactic Council was recalled into emergency session, This time there were no public galleries, no media coverage, no ceremonial displays. Just the 12 most powerful beings in the galaxy, meeting in secret to discuss what might be the greatest intelligence failure in galactic history. The evidence was presented by a joint intelligence committee representing all major species. Holographic displays showed the true scope of human presence throughout the galaxy. Energy readings, ship movements, communication intercepts, and gravitational anomalies painted a picture of a civilization that dwarfed anything the galaxy had previously imagined. Conservative estimates, reported the intelligence summary, suggest the humans have established colonies in over 3,000 star systems. Their true population appears to be 50 times larger than declared. Their industrial capacity exceeds that of any known galactic power. Their technology, while different from galactic standards, appears to be significantly more advanced in key areas. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Every assumption about humanity had been wrong. They were not a small chaotic species struggling to find their place in galactic civilization. They were potentially the largest single power in known space, operating from the shadows while letting others believe they were weak and contained. Council Prime Zendar's mental voice trembled with something that might have been fear. How long have they been watching us? How much do they know about our civilizations, our military capabilities, our strategic weaknesses? The intelligence report had answers to those questions, but they were not comforting ones. Human traders had been present at virtually every major galactic event for the past 3 centuries. Human scientists had participated in research projects involving advanced technologies. Human diplomats had attended countless private meetings and strategic planning sessions. If the humans had been systematically gathering intelligence while hiding their true capabilities, then they potentially knew more about galactic civilization than any single species in the galaxy. They had been watching, learning, and preparing for 300 years while everyone else believed they were dealing with harmless newcomers. The emergency session lasted for 3 days. By the end, one fact had become clear. The galaxy needed answers from humanity, and they needed them immediately. The comfortable assumptions of the past 3 centuries had been shattered. The humans were not what they seemed to be. Admiral Sarah Chen was formally recalled to Earth. In her place came a new human representative, introduced simply as Fleet Admiral Marcus Webb. Unlike Chen's modest appearance and quiet demeanor, Webb carried himself with unmistakable authority. His presence seemed to fill whatever room he entered, and his eyes held the steady gaze of someone who had seen real combat. When he addressed the emergency council session, his first words sent chills through every delegate present. "Honorable members of the Galactic Council," Webb said calmly, "I understand you have questions about human activities in galactic space. Perhaps it is time for complete honesty between us." The way he said it made clear that previous honesty had been incomplete at best. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity really was, and many suspected they would not like the answer. War Marshal Thisakar of the hegemony had built his reputation on decisive action. When faced with a problem, he solved it with overwhelming force. The revelation that humans had been operating a secret empire throughout the galaxy was certainly a problem, and Thisakar had a simple solution. "They have violated galactic law," he declared to the hegemony high command. "They have deceived the council and ignored our restrictions. They must be brought to heel immediately, before they become a real threat." The hegemony controlled the largest military force in known space. Their fleets had kept peace for over 1,000 years, not through diplomacy, but through the knowledge that resistance was futile. No species had ever successfully opposed hegemony military might when it was applied with full force. Thisakar assembled a fleet of 15,000 vessels for the operation. Battleships that could crack planets, carriers launching swarms of fighters, support ships packed with troops and equipment. It was enough firepower to conquer most civilizations. Deployed against what everyone still believed to be a minor human colony world. The target was Kepler 442c, a human mining operation in the outer territories. According to intelligence reports, it was one of their larger hidden colonies, with perhaps 1 million inhabitants. The plan was simple: arrive in overwhelming force, demand surrender, and demonstrate that humanity's secret expansion would not be tolerated. The hegemony fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, expecting to find a handful of human vessels and some basic defensive installations. What they found instead was their first indication that their intelligence had been catastrophically wrong. The system was not just occupied by humans. It was fortified by them. Massive orbital defense platforms surrounded the main world, their design unlike anything in galactic databases. Energy readings suggested weapons of enormous power, far beyond what human technology should be capable of producing. More confusing still, the space around Kepler 442c was filled with human vessels, but these were not the small, simple ships that humans used in their public activities. These were massive industrial vessels, sleek warships with aggressive lines and enormous support craft that dwarfed anything the hegemony had encountered. How many humans are supposed to be in this system? Thysakar demanded of his intelligence officer. Approximately 1 million, War Marshal. A mining colony with basic facilities. Thysakar looked at his tactical display. The energy signatures alone suggested a population in the tens of millions. The industrial infrastructure was sufficient to support a major military installation. The defensive capabilities appeared to rival those of hegemony fortress worlds. "Send a surrender demand," he ordered. Perhaps the humans would see reason when faced with hegemony firepower. The response came not from a civilian administrator or colonial governor, but from someone identified as Fleet Commander Sarah Martinez. Her image appeared on the main screen of Thysakar's flagship, and her calm expression suggested someone who was not impressed by the massive fleet arrayed against her. "War Marshal Thysakar," she said politely, "I am afraid we cannot comply with your surrender demand. Kepler 442c is a sovereign human territory, established and maintained according to our legal rights under galactic law." "You have no legal rights here," Thysakar replied. "This system is beyond your authorized territory. You will surrender immediately or face the consequences." Martinez tilted her head slightly as if considering his words. "I see. You are operating under outdated information. Perhaps we should correct some misconceptions before this situation escalates unnecessarily." Before Thysakar could respond, his tactical officer called out in alarm. "War Marshal, the human mining vessels are changing configuration." On the tactical display, the industrial ships that had been scattered throughout the system were transforming. External panels slid away to reveal weapons and armor plating. Civilian mining equipment retracted to expose military-grade sensors and targeting systems. What had appeared to be a collection of helpless cargo haulers was rapidly becoming a fleet of warships. "Impossible," breathed Thysakar. "Those are civilian vessels. They cannot simply become military ships." His tactical officer was frantically updating threat assessments as the human vessels completed their transformations. "Sir, the humans appear to have been using modular ship designs. Their civilian vessels were actually military ships in disguise." The implications were staggering. If human civilian ships could transform into warships, then every human vessel the galaxy had encountered might be a potential military threat. The traders, explorers, and colonists that had been moving freely through galactic space for 3 centuries might all be soldiers in disguise. Fleet Commander Martinez spoke again from the communication screen. "War Marshal, I am authorized to give you one opportunity to withdraw your forces and return to hegemony space. If you choose to proceed with hostilities, the consequences will be entirely your responsibility." Thysakar looked at his tactical display. Even with the transformed ships, the humans were still outnumbered more than 10 to 1. Their vessels were larger than expected, but quantity had a quality all its own. The hegemony had faced desperate defenders before and crushed them through sheer overwhelming force. "All ships, prepare for battle," he ordered. "We will demonstrate what happens when inferior species challenge hegemony authority." The battle that followed would be analyzed by military strategists for generations to come. The hegemony opened with their standard overwhelming assault, launching thousands of fighters and deploying enough firepower to devastate a planet. They expected the human defenders to crumble under the initial barrage. Instead, the humans fought with a precision and coordination that spoke to centuries of military experience. Their defensive platforms opened fire with weapons that cut through hegemony shields like they were not there. Their transformed vessels moved with tactical awareness that suggested long preparation for exactly this type of engagement. But what shocked Thysakar most was not the humans' technology or their numbers. It was their strategy. The humans were not fighting to win quickly. They were fighting to demonstrate capabilities while minimizing casualties on both sides. Human weapons disabled rather than destroyed. Human fighters drove off hegemony pilots rather than killing them. When hegemony ships suffered critical damage, human vessels moved to provide rescue assistance even while the battle continued around them. It was as if the humans were conducting a military exercise rather than fighting for their lives. The engagement lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the hegemony fleet had lost 40% of its vessels. Their formations had been systematically dismantled by opponents who seemed to know their tactics better than they knew them themselves. Thousands of hegemony personnel were dead or captured. Human casualties were minimal. Thesakar found himself aboard a crippled flagship, surrounded by the wreckage of what had been the most powerful fleet in galactic space. His tactical displays showed human vessels moving through the debris field, rescuing survivors and providing medical assistance to former enemies. Fleet Commander Martinez opened communications one final time. Her expression remained calm and professional, showing no triumph or anger. If anything, she looked sad. "War Marshal," she said quietly, "your surviving vessels are free to return to hegemony space. Your wounded will be treated and returned to you. Your dead will be honored according to your customs." "How?" Thesakar asked, his voice barely a whisper. "How did you defeat us so easily?" Martinez was quiet for a long moment before answering. "We did not defeat you, War Marshal. We restrained ourselves. There is a difference, and I hope you understand its significance." As the surviving hegemony vessels limped away from Kepler 442c, Thesakar composed the most difficult message of his military career. His report to the hegemony high command was brief and shocking. The humans were not hiding expansion. They were hiding military capabilities that made the hegemony look like children playing with toys. Similar reports began flowing in from across the galaxy as intelligence services took a closer look at human activities. What they had dismissed as trading posts were revealed as forward military bases. Scientific expeditions were actually reconnaissance missions. The quiet, compliant humans who had accepted galactic restrictions were soldiers who had been observing and preparing for conflict. The galaxy's comfortable assumptions about humanity crumbled as the truth became clear. The humans had not been contained by galactic restrictions. They had been studying their potential enemies while allowing those enemies to believe they were in control. The species that had voted to restrict humanity began to realize they had made a terrible mistake. They had not prevented a human threat. They had revealed themselves as threats to humanity, and if the battle at Kepler 442c was any indication, that distinction might prove to be the difference between survival and extinction. The great chamber of Nexus Prime had never been so quiet. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in stunned silence as Fleet Admiral Marcus Webb prepared to address the emergency session of the Galactic Council. Word of the hegemony's defeat at Kepler 442c had spread like wildfire through galactic communications networks. The species that had considered themselves the masters of known space were beginning to understand that they might have been living in a carefully maintained illusion. Webb stood at the central podium, his presence commanding attention in ways that Admiral Chen's quiet diplomacy never had. Where Chen had seemed almost invisible among the galaxy's powerful representatives, Webb dominated the space around him. His uniform was simple but carried the unmistakable bearing of someone who had commanded real military forces in actual combat. "Honorable delegates," Webb began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "Recent events have created some confusion about humanity's place in galactic civilization. I am here to provide clarification." The way he said it made clear that previous human statements had been incomplete at best. Council Prime Zendar's mental voice touched Webb's mind with a question that carried undertones of fear. "Fleet Admiral, the evidence suggests that humanity has been systematically deceiving the galactic community about your true capabilities. We require immediate explanation for these deceptions." Webb nodded slowly as if he had expected this question. "You are correct, Council Prime. Humanity has not been entirely truthful about our capabilities or our presence in galactic space. This deception was deliberate and carefully maintained for over 3 centuries. The admission sent shockwaves through the assembled delegates. Many had hoped that the intelligence reports were somehow mistaken, that the battle at Kepler 442c was an aberration, that humanity was still the manageable minor species they had believed them to be. However, Webb continued, this deception was not undertaken with hostile intent. It was implemented as a survival strategy for a species that found itself in a galaxy it did not fully understand. A holographic display activated behind Webb, showing star charts of human space. But these were not the 17 systems that humanity had publicly claimed. The display showed thousands of star systems marked with human settlements, stretching across multiple galactic regions and extending far beyond the boundaries of known space. The scope of human civilization was breathtaking. While galactic powers had been focused on their established territories, humanity had been quietly expanding into previously unexplored regions. They had built colonies in systems that other species had never even detected, established trade routes through regions considered empty space, and developed industrial capabilities that dwarfed anything in the known galaxy. You have wondered, Webb said calmly, why a species as allegedly chaotic as humanity achieved faster-than-light travel so quickly, why we adapted to galactic civilization with such apparent ease, why we seemed so eager to expand despite our supposedly primitive technology. The holographic display shifted, showing human historical data that told a very different story than the one galactic civilization had been told. Dates scrolled past showing human achievements. First faster-than-light travel nearly 2,000 years ago. First extragalactic exploration over 15 centuries past. First contact with galactic civilization carefully orchestrated after centuries of observation. The truth is that humanity achieved interstellar capability long before making official first contact with galactic civilization. We spent centuries exploring, mapping, and studying the galaxy before revealing our presence. Every interaction between humans and galactic species has been carefully planned and executed according to long-term strategic objectives. The implications hit the assembled delegates like a physical blow. Humanity had not stumbled into galactic civilization as primitive newcomers seeking guidance. They had been studying galactic civilization for generations before choosing to reveal themselves. Every human they had met, every interaction they had experienced, every assumption they had made about human capabilities had been part of an elaborate performance. Ambassador Kethvar of the Hegemony found his voice first. You admit to systematic espionage against sovereign galactic powers. You have been observing us without consent, gathering intelligence while pretending to be harmless primitives. This is an act of war. Webb turned to face the Hegemony representative, his expression remaining calm despite the accusation. Ambassador, we have been gathering information necessary for our survival. When humanity first detected galactic civilization, we discovered a community of species that had been at peace for so long that they had forgotten how to fight real wars. We faced a choice: reveal our true military capabilities and risk being seen as a threat, or conceal our strength and hope to coexist peacefully. The holographic display changed again, showing human military capabilities that made every delegate in the chamber reconsider their species' position in the galactic hierarchy. Fleet strengths numbered in the hundreds of thousands of vessels, industrial capacity that could outfit entire armadas, technological capabilities that made advanced galactic civilizations look primitive by comparison. We chose deception over domination. Webb continued. We allowed you to see us as weak because strong species make others nervous. We wanted to trade, learn, and coexist. We thought that if we appeared harmless, you would accept us as equals, rather than viewing us as threats to be eliminated. The human military data continued scrolling past, showing capabilities that redefined what galactic powers had considered possible. Energy weapons that made hegemony armaments look like toys, defensive systems that could protect entire star systems, manufacturing capabilities that could produce fleets faster than most species could plan them. But you have forced our hand, Webb said, his voice taking on a harder edge. The restrictions you placed on us were based on the assumption that you had the power to enforce them. That assumption was incorrect. Council Prime Zendar's mental voice trembled as it touched every mind in the chamber. What you are describing suggests that humanity possesses military capabilities, far exceeding any known galactic power. You could have conquered us at any time. Yes, Webb replied simply. We could have. We chose not to. The silence that followed was deafening. Every delegate was doing the same calculation, reaching the same terrifying conclusion. If humanity had been watching and studying galactic civilization for centuries while concealing capabilities that exceeded anything the galaxy possessed, then they were not just another galactic power. They were the apex predator in a galaxy full of prey animals. Webb activated another display, this one showing the true structure of human civilization. Military command hierarchies that spanned thousands of worlds. Intelligence networks that had been monitoring galactic activities for generations. Industrial systems that could support military operations on a scale that dwarfed anything in galactic history. Every human you have encountered, Webb explained. Every ambassador, trader, colonist, or scientist is a trained military operative. Every human vessel has full military capability. Every human world is prepared for siege warfare. This is not because we are naturally aggressive. It is because we come from a world where those who could not fight were conquered by those who could. The revelation continued in carefully measured stages. Humanity's true history unfolded before the assembled delegates. A species that had evolved on a world of constant warfare, where technological advancement was driven by military necessity. They had carried that militaristic heritage to the stars, building a civilization designed for conflict even while hoping for peace. We did not build this strength to conquer you, Webb stated clearly. We built it to ensure that no one could conquer us. But your recent actions have demonstrated that peaceful coexistence may not be possible. The final holographic display showed what humanity considered their ultimate capability. Not their technology, not their fleets, not their numbers, but their unity of purpose. A species that had learned to work together in the face of existential threats. That could coordinate the actions of trillions of individuals across thousands of worlds in pursuit of common objectives. The battle at Kepler 442c was not a demonstration of our military strength, Webb concluded. It was a demonstration of our restraint. We could have destroyed the hegemony fleet completely. We chose to disable rather than kill, to capture rather than annihilate. We hope you understand the significance of that choice. The chamber remained silent as delegates contemplated what they had learned. Humanity was not just another galactic power to be managed or contained. They were potentially the most dangerous military force in known space, and they had been living next to galactic civilization for centuries, while allowing others to believe they were harmless. The species that had voted to restrict humanity began to understand that they had not contained a threat. They had revealed themselves as potential enemies to a power that could erase them from existence, and that power had been showing remarkable restraint in not doing exactly that. Fleet Admiral Webb stood before the Galactic Council as the weight of humanity's revelations settled over the chamber like a suffocating blanket. The delegates who had gathered to address the human problem now understood that they themselves might be the problem that needed solving. The silence stretched on as representatives from hundreds of worlds tried to process the magnitude of their miscalculation. I can see that this information is overwhelming, Webb said, his voice carrying a calm authority that made his next words even more chilling. But we are not finished. What I have shown you represents humanity's conventional military capabilities. Our true strength lies not in our weapons or our fleets, but in our commitment to protecting our species and our willingness to do whatever is necessary to ensure our survival. A new holographic display activated, showing something that made even the most advanced galactic civilizations question everything they thought they knew about warfare. Project Lighthouse, a network of monitoring stations that had been tracking every military vessel, every strategic communication, and every resource depot in the galaxy for 3 centuries. The display showed real-time positions of every major fleet in galactic space. Hegemony battle groups, Zephyrian Imperial squadrons, Silicon collective defense flotillas, even the secret reserve fleets that galactic powers thought were hidden from enemy observation. All of them appeared on the human strategic display with precise locations, fleet compositions, and tactical assessments. We know where your ships are, Webb stated matter-of-factly. We know your command structures, your supply lines, your strategic weaknesses, and your operational capabilities. We have been preparing for galactic-scale warfare since the day we made first contact. Ambassador Kethvar of the Hegemony found his voice, though it trembled with barely contained rage and fear. This is an intolerable violation of sovereign space. You have been spying on every galactic power for centuries. Yes, Webb replied without a trace of apology. We have been gathering the intelligence necessary to defend ourselves against any possible threat. And based on recent events, that intelligence gathering appears to have been justified. The holographic display shifted to show tactical analyses that reduced galactic military might to cold numbers and strategic assessments. Hegemony forces, powerful but predictable, vulnerable to coordinated attacks on command vessels. Zephyrian fleets, fast and maneuverable but lacking in heavy firepower, dependent on supply bases that could be easily targeted. Silicon Collective, strong defensive capabilities but limited offensive projection, concentrated in easily blockaded systems. Every galactic power's military secrets were laid bare with clinical precision. Decades of careful intelligence gathering had given humanity perfect knowledge of their potential enemies' capabilities and weaknesses. The galaxy's military leaders realized with growing horror that they had been playing a game where only one side could see the board. However, Webb continued, we are not here to threaten you with this knowledge. We are here to offer you a choice. The chamber held its breath as Webb outlined humanity's terms. The choice was stark and simple. Accept humanity as a full equal in galactic civilization, with complete territorial autonomy and military independence, or face the consequences of trying to maintain the current restrictions. Option 1, Webb said clearly, is immediate recognition of humanity's sovereign rights to all territories we currently occupy, full voting membership in the Galactic Council, and the withdrawal of all peacekeeping forces from human space. In return, we will continue our policy of peaceful coexistence and mutual cooperation. The first option was reasonable, even generous considering humanity's obvious military superiority. Most delegates began to hope that this crisis could be resolved through diplomacy rather than warfare. Option 2, Webb continued, is humanity's complete withdrawal from galactic civilization. We will recall all our personnel, close all our trade routes, and cease all diplomatic contact. You will be free to govern galactic space as you see fit, without any human involvement or interference. The second option was more troubling. Many galactic economies had become dependent on human trade and expertise. The sudden withdrawal of human participation would cause significant disruption to established systems and relationships. Option 3, Webb said, his voice taking on a tone that sent chills through every delegate present, is for any galactic power to attempt enforcement of the current restrictions on humanity, or to take hostile action against human personnel or territory. The holographic display changed one final time, showing the results of wargame simulations that reduced galactic civilization to burning wreckage. The scenarios were detailed, thorough, and terrifying in their clinical precision. They showed how human forces would systematically dismantle galactic military capabilities, target command and control systems, and eliminate the ability of hostile powers to wage effective warfare. In the event of Option 3, Webb stated with chilling calm, humanity will respond with the full extent of our military capabilities. This response will not be conquest or occupation. It will be the complete elimination of any species or power that threatens human interests. The wargame scenarios continued playing out on the holographic display, showing exactly how humanity would conduct a campaign of extermination. Supply lines cut, communication networks destroyed, command centers eliminated, entire fleets reduced to debris. The simulation suggested that humanity could end galactic civilization as a functioning entity within a matter of months. Council Prime Zendar's mental voice touched every mind in the chamber, carrying overtones of ancient fear that spoke to survival instincts older than civilization itself. You are threatening genocide against the entire galaxy. No, Webb replied firmly. We are explaining the consequences of choosing to threaten humanity's survival. We do not want this outcome. We have spent centuries trying to avoid it, but if forced to choose between our extinction and yours, we will choose yours without hesitation. The simple honesty of his statement was more terrifying than any threat could have been. This was not bluster or intimidation. This was a species that had calculated the costs of galactic warfare and decided they were acceptable if the alternative was subjugation or destruction. But perhaps most importantly, Webb continued, I want you to understand what we are about to demonstrate. Without warning, every display screen in the chamber activated, showing human installations throughout the galaxy beginning to power down. Defense platforms went dark. Fleets began moving toward rally points. The vast intelligence network that had been monitoring galactic civilization for centuries started systematically shutting itself down. We are not threatening you with our strength. Webb explained as the shutdown continued. We are preparing to abandon galactic space entirely if necessary. Every human installation beyond our declared territory is being evacuated. Every intelligence asset is being recalled. Every connection between humanity and galactic civilization is being severed. The implications were staggering. Humanity was not preparing for war. They were preparing to leave. They were demonstrating that they could withdraw completely from galactic space, taking with them all the benefits they had provided, and leaving the galaxy to face its problems without human assistance or protection. This is what human strength really means, Webb said as the withdrawal continued. We have the capability to destroy you, but we would prefer to simply leave you alone. We have the power to conquer the galaxy, but we would rather explore beyond it. We can eliminate any threat to our survival, but we would prefer to avoid making such eliminations necessary. The chamber watched in stunned silence as humanity began disappearing from galactic space. Trade routes went quiet. Research projects shut down. Diplomatic contacts ceased. The humans were not making threats or demands. They were simply leaving, and their departure left gaping holes in galactic civilization that no one had realized existed. The silence that followed lasted for 3 days while galactic leaders contemplated a future without human involvement. Economic analyses showed catastrophic disruptions to established trade networks. Military assessments revealed security gaps that human activities had been quietly filling. Scientific projects collapsed as human expertise and resources vanished. The galaxy had become dependent on humanity without realizing it, and now they were facing the prospect of losing that dependence through their own actions. When the Galactic Council reconvened, the vote was swift and unanimous. Humanity was granted full membership with complete territorial and military autonomy. The restrictions were not just lifted but formally apologized for. Every demand that humanity had made was accepted without argument or modification. Fleet Admiral Webb accepted the Council's decision with the same quiet grace that Admiral Chen had shown years earlier. But as he prepared to leave the chamber, he made one final statement that would echo through galactic history. We are pleased that this matter has been resolved peacefully. Humanity has always preferred cooperation to conquest, trade to warfare, exploration to domination. We hope that preference never becomes impossible to maintain. His words carried an implicit warning that was not lost on any delegate present. Humanity's restraint was a choice, not a weakness.